Good morning, students. In the last class, we have completed a topic that is change in quantity demanded and change in demand. And in the change in quantity demanded, what we have studied, we have studied that there is movement of the demand curve is always on the same demand curve, which means that the new demand curve is drawn. And the change in quantity demanded is of two types, that is extension of demand and the contraction of demand. Okay, and next topic we studied that the change in demand basically means there is shift of the demand curve. It is because of the by change in the others factor than the price of the goods. In the change in quantity demanded, there we studied the relation between the price and the quantity demanded, but in the case of change in demand we studied the relation between the what will be impact when the others factors then price is changed. So what will impact on the demand? So it is the other factors which affecting the demand is change in income, taste and preferences, seasons, climate, population of the country, distribution of income. In the change of demand we studied it is of two types, that is increase in demand and decrease in demand. So today we are going to start a distinction between the change in quantity demanded and change in demand, or the distinction between the movement along the demand curve or the shift of the demand curve. Okay, now let's start. We will differentiate the both of them along with the basis. The first basis is the meaning. Okay, when the demand of a commodity changes due to change in its price, other things being equal, it is known as the change in quantity demanded. As we already known, whenever we study the relation between the demand of the commodity and the price of the commodity, demand is changed due to change in price and we have taken other things remaining constant, so it is called the change in quantity demanded. And the change in demand means when the demand of a commodity is changes due to change in the other factor. Okay, we studied here the relation between the demand of a commodity with the change in the others factor affecting the demand, and we do not take the price here to show the relation with the demand. It is called the change in demand with the cause. The cause of change in quantity demanded is the change in the price of the commodity. Change in quantity demanded is totally depend upon the price of the commodity, and the change in demand is totally depend upon the others factor than price. It doesn't depend upon the price. It says the cause of change in demand is totally depend upon the changes of the other factor than price. Okay, now next is types. It is of two types, that is extension of the demand and the contraction of demand. And change in quantity demanded is of two types, increase in demand and decrease in demand. So let's study what is extension of demand. When demand rises due to fall in its price of a commodity, other things being equal. Okay, when we studied that the demand rises due to fall in its price, it is called the extension of demand. There is and the other factors remaining constant. Okay, and the increase in demand leads to when demand rises due to change in other factor. Okay, when demand is rising due to change in the other factor than price, it is called the increase in demand. It is because of the increase in income, favorable shift in taste, is decrease in the price of the substitute goods and increase in the price of the substitute goods and decrease in the price of the complementary goods. Okay, so we have taken the example of the extension of demand, that the when price is 10, the quantity demanded is 4. When the price is decreases, quantity demanded is increases. Here when the price is remaining constant at the both level, the quantity demanded is increasing from 4 to 8. Okay, now what is contraction of demand? when demand falls due to rise in price. It is just opposite. When the demand is falls due to rise in its price and other things remaining constant. So we have taken the example that when the price of the commodity is 5, quantity demanded is 8. When the price increases from 5 to 10, then the quantity demanded decreases from 8 to 4. Okay. Now, what is decrease in demand? When demand of a commodity falls due to change in the other factor than its price. Okay. When the demand of the any commodity is changed, or when the demand of the any commodity falls due to change in the other factor than the price, it is called the decrease in demand. It is because of the decrease in income of the consumer, decrease in the price of the substitute goods, increase in the price of the complementary goods. Okay. We have taken one example that the price is same. When the price is 10, quantity demanded is 8. With the same price at 10, the quantity demanded is decreasing. So it is called the decrease in demand. Okay. Now, next is we will show it through the diagram, that is graphical representation of the extension of demand, contraction of demand, increase in demand and decrease in demand. Okay. Extension of demand. It is shown by the movement from the upper point to lower point. Okay. In the case of extension, the point is moved from upper to lower, but along the same demand curve. But in the case of contraction of demand, it is movement along the same curve from the lower point to upper point, just opposite to each other. Okay, just see the diagram of both. There is movement along the same curve from upper point to lower point. Okay, it is shifted. It is moved, not shifted. Sorry, it is moved from one point A to point B. When price is 10, the consumer is consuming the 4 unit of a commodity. When price is decreases, the consumer is consuming 6 unit of a commodity. So that in the first unit, the consumer is consuming at point A. The consumer is on at point A on the same demand curve. And when price is decreased, then there is also shift. There is also consumer consuming the 6 unit of a commodity. So the point is shifted from point A to point B. In contrary contraction of demand, it is shown by the movement along the same curve from the lower point to upper point. Okay, how? When the price is 5, the consumer is consuming the more commodity. So at point 8 commodity, when the price is rises, when the price is 5, consumer is at point B. Okay, and when the price of the commodity is rises, so the consumer is consuming the less commodity, so it will shift to the point 4, and then the point is shifted or the moved from point B to B to A, so that in the case of contraction of demand, there is movement from the lower point to upper point along in the same demand curve. There will be no shift of the demand curve. Demand curve will be the same. In the case of change in quantity demanded, there are 2 types: extension of demand or the contraction of demand. Okay. Now, in the case of change in demand, then the demand curve will be shifted to the rightward. Simply, when we have taken the price as the constant at price 10, then it will shift it from point A to point B. It shows the increase in demand. In the case of decrease in demand, the curve is shifted from point A to point B. It is shifted from rightward to leftward, from D to D1. Okay, we have taken here price and here quantity. Okay, simple. So that same same price, the consumer is consuming less of the commodity. Next is application of the law of demand. Law of demand is applicable as the demand of the commodities respond to its price other things being equal. Okay, application of law of demand is applicable here, that it is the law, only law of demand is applicable, because law of demand says that there is negative relation between the price and quantity demanded. In the change in the quantity demanded, we have studied that when the price of the any commodity increases, so the demand of the commodity will be decreases, and the vice versa. So in the case of change in the quantity demanded, there is application of the law of demand, because we have studied here the relation between the quantity demanded and the price of the commodity. But in the case of change in demand, the law of demand is not applicable, because here we are studying the relation between the quantity demanded due to change in the, what will be the impact of the on the quantity demanded when the others factor is changing then the price is here we have not taken others factors of the demand is changing, so that in the case of change in demand there is not applicable of law of demand. Now description more is demanded at less price, other things being equal. Okay, in the case of extension of demand, more is demanded at the less price. Okay, prices here, the prices, when the prices fall, demand is more in the case of extension, and the less is demanded at the more price. When the price is more, less of the commodity is demanded, it is called the contraction of demand. In the case of change in demand, more is demanded at the same price, or the same is demanded as the more price. Increase in demand says that the consumer will demand more of the commodity when the price is same, or when the price is more, the consumer is demanded the same commodity. Just opposite to each other. When the price is same, commodity is consumer demanding more, and when the demand is same, the price is more. So it is just contrary to each other. And the last one is less is demanded at the same price, and the same is demanded at the less price. Okay, whenever consumer demand the less of the commodity when the price is same, that is 10 or 10 or 20 or 20, or when the price is less, consumer demanded the same commodity. It is in the case of the decrease in demand. Okay, so it's all about the difference between the change in quantity demanded and the change in demand. Change in quantity says that there is relation between the what will be the changes occurs in the law of demanded when the price of the commodities changes, and in the case of change in quantity demanded, what will be impact on the demand when there is change in the others factor than the price. So in the case of change in quantity demanded, we have studied two: extension of demand and the contraction of demand. In the change in demand, we have studied the also two, that is increase in demand and decrease in demand. In the case of change in quantity demanded, we have studied that the movement along the same demand curve from upper point to lower point, or lower point to upper point. But in the case of change in demand, the demand curve is shifted to rightward or the leftward. In the case of change in quantity demanded, law of demand is applicable because it says or it study the relation between the change and the quantity demanded. But in the case of change in demand, there is law of demand is not applicable because it study the relation between the change in quantity demanded and the others factor then the price. So it's all about the difference between the change in quantity demanded and the change in demand. Okay, now the next one is distinction between the extension of demand and the contraction of demand. Extension of demand and contraction of demand. It is the part of the change in quantity demanded. Just remember it. It is the part of the only change in quantity demanded, and increase in demand and decrease in demand is the part of the change in demand. Okay, let's start. What is the meaning of the extension and the contraction of demand? Other things being equal, when the price of the any commodity rises due to fall in its price, it is called the extension of demand. Okay, you know very well, change in quantity demanded. Study the relation between the when the price of the any commodity is increases due and the when the price of the any commodity is increases, the quantity demanded of the that commodity will be decreases. Okay, so in this case there is demand of the commodity is demanded more by the consumer. When the prices fall, it is the case of the extension of demand, and the other things, others factor remaining the constant. But in the case of contraction of demand, other things being equal, when the demand of a commodity falls due to rise in price, when the price of the commodity is rises, the consumer demanding the less of the commodity, so it is called the contraction of demand. Now the tabular presentation: when the price is 10, consumer is consuming 4 unit. When the price is falls 10 to 5, consumer is consuming more of the commodity. Okay, when the price falls, consumer consumes more commodity. In the contraction of demand, it is the case of when the price is 5, consumer is consuming 8 unit. When the price falls from 5 to 10, then the consumer is when the prices falls from 5 prices rises from 5 to 10, then the consumer is consuming less of the quantity demanded, so it is decreases. So in the extension of demand, we study the relation between the when the price is falls, demand is increasing. In the case of contraction, when the price is rising, demand is decreasing. Okay, now the next is graphically presentation. You know very well that in the extension and the contraction of demand, there is movement along the same curve. Okay, the movement along the same curve means that the upper point as well as the lower point is moved from one place to another place. In the case of extension of demand, the upper point is moved to the lower point, because when the when the price is 10, we have taken when the price is 10, consumer is consuming 4 unit. Okay, and when the price is at the price 10, consumer is at point A. Okay, when the price is decreased from 10 to 5, then the consumer is consuming more of the commodity from 4 to 8. Then consumer is moved from point A to point B. So the consumer is moved from point A to point B. It is called the extension of demand. Then the consumer is moved from point A to point B along the same demand curve. There will be no change, there will be no shift of the demand curve. Movement from upper point to lower point is extension of demand. Okay, in the case of contraction of demand, when the price is 5, the consumer is consuming 8 unit of commodity. When the price become more rises from 5 to 10, then the consumer is consuming the less of the commodity. In the case of when the price is 5, consumer is at point A. Okay, and when the price becomes the 10, the consumer is moved from point A to B, so that it is movement from the lower point to upper point. It is called the contraction of demand. Okay, description: more is demanded at less price, other things being equal. Okay, when the price is less, consumer is demanding more of the commodity, and less is demand at the more price. When the price is more, consumer is demanding less of the commodity, and we have taken the other thing remaining constant. There will be no change in the others factor. Okay. Now the next is increase in demand and decrease in demand. What is difference between the increase in demand and decrease in demand? Meaning, when demand of a commodity rises due to change in the other factor, then price. Okay, when the demand of any commodity rises due to change in the other factor, then the price. Here we are not studying the relation between the quantity demanded and the price. We are studying the relation between the quantity demanded and the others factors which affecting the demand. So when the demand of the commodity rises due to change in the other factor, it is called the increase in demand. And when the demand of a commodity falls due to change in the others factor, in this case demand of the commodity is rises, and in the case of decrease in demand, the demand of the commodity is falls. Okay, what are the different causes for increase in demand? Is increase in income. When the consumer have the increase in income, then consumer will prefer the normal goods. And when the decrease in income, when the consumer is less of the income, so he will shift it to the inferior good, and the demand for the inferior good will be also rises, so that the curve is shifted to the rightward. Next is increase in the price of the substitute good. We have taken the example of the tea or coffee. When the price of the substitute goods is increases, so that we will shift to the rightward. Decrease in the price of the complementary good. When the price of the complementary good, we have taken the example of the car and petrol. So when there is price of the complementary good decreases, so we will shift to the rightward. Whenever there is favorable shift in taste and preferences, basically any product in which we have taken the favorable, it is not unfavorable, so that in that condition the curve is shifted from leftward to rightward. From the, for example, it is the curve DD, it is shifted from rightward, so D1 D1. Okay, next one is increase in the size of the population. When the population of the country is increases, so the demand of the commodity will also increases, so the curve will shift to the rightward. And the next one is expectation of price rise in future. When any customer or any consumer think that any commodity, the price of that commodity is increasing in future, so that he demand more of the commodity, so that he make the some stock of the that good. For that purpose, the demand of that commodity is increases. In that condition, the curve is shifted to the rightward. When the next one is equal distribution of income. When the income is equally distributed among the different sectors of the economy, so that demand of the every sector is increases, then the demand of the any commodity is increases, the curve will shift it to the rightward. These all are the causes for the increase in demand. Okay, now the next is causes are for the decrease in demand. Decrease in income. When the income of the any individual is decreases, so in the case of normal good, the curve is shifted leftward. Okay, D2 D1 or D1. Okay, increase in income. When the income is increases in the case of inferior good, so that there is decrease in demand. Next is decrease in the price of the substitute good. When the price of the any substitute good is decreases, then the curve is also shifted to the leftward. When there is increase in the price of the complementary good, then the curve is also shifted to the leftward. When there is unfavorable shift in taste and preferences. Okay, when the taste and preferences is change of any consumer, and it is not favorable to that good, so the demand for the that good is decreases, the curve will shift it to the leftward. decrease in the size of the population. When the population is decreasing, so the demand of the good is also decreasing. Expectation of the price fall in future, when any customer or the consumer think that the price of the that commodity will fall in future, so that the demand for that good will be decreased. And unequal distribution of income, when the income is not equally distributed among the different sector of the economy, so that all the sector does not demand more of the commodity, so the curve is shifted to the leftward. Okay, these all are the causes for the increase in demand and decrease in demand. Okay, these all are the reason why the demand curve is increasing or why the demand curve is decreased, why the curve is shifted to the rightward, or the why the demand curve is shifted to the leftward. Okay, so next is tabular presentation. We have to take the tabular presentation.